Welcome back to This Week. I'm pleased to be joined by businesswoman, former Assistant Commissioner in Governor Bill Haslam's administration, and campaign manager for Senator Lamar Alexander, Alice Rolli. Welcome. Congratulations on making it to the runoff.
Thank you.
20% is impressive with 13 candidates. That means you had some great support.
We did.
Now going into the runoff election, it obviously changes from 12 candidates to 2 candidates. I mean, the general election really was get my people to the polls and I might make the runoff. This one is more about a choice election, more about your stands on issues, your personal relationships with the Metro Council and with the people that are going to be running the government. How has that changed how you campaign, a shorter campaign to get to election day?
Well, I think you've laid it out pretty well. I think the decision for voters now is to ask ourselves 3 times in a row. We've moved a desk from the city council to the mayor's office. And in that same period of time, the majority of Nashville voters have gone from saying we're in the right direction to saying we're going in the wrong direction. So I think Nashville voters are smart, and I think that they see the deterioration of relationships, the deterioration of the management of the city, and they probably think maybe it's an independent attitude, a business person, somebody with a little different way of doing things that we might need to bring in.
This may be one of the biggest choice elections Tennessee has seen in a while. Yourself a conservative, your opponent a progressive. Obviously, you have differences of opinions on issues. My question is, you said you've known Freddie for several years. Is there an agreement? Is there an issue you kind of agree on needs to be worked in a uniformed way?
Oh yeah, no, Freddie and I agree on a lot of things. He and I met at a planning table for Nashville Next. I think we agree that the voices of neighbors and neighborhoods are important. Yeah, I think that we just have a little bit of a different approach. I don't have a kind of a national progressive political agenda. I look at everything as how am I going to get stuff done with the state and the federal partners that we have? How are we going to figure things out for people who live in Davidson County?
LPR cameras, the Metro Council in its final term approved LPR cameras. It was a 6-month pilot program. It's now going to be permanent. The new council has to vote on it, but it looks like it's going to happen. Your view on LPR cameras. Police want them. They say they help with finding stolen cars, cars involved in crime. Opponents say they're placed in minority neighborhoods. They're infringing on my civil rights. They are a tool. How do you, if we're going to use these, how do you use this tool correctly and not infringe on people's rights?
Well, I do support LPRs, and as you mentioned, the police do too, and I was honored this week to receive the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police. We know better about how to indicate, about how to be accountable in our policing, how to be transparent, how to use data, how to action that data. This very limited pilot program recovered a huge amount and helped with prosecuting a huge amount of stolen guns and stolen property. They've been around for 4 decades in a lot of cities across the country, and I think we can do that well here. You
mentioned your endorsement with the FOP. What is your relationship with Chief John Drake? I think he has done a tremendous job of adding police officers, getting people in the academy. There's going to be a new precinct coming on, and yet he is still fighting crime, gun crimes, youth violence crime. It's out there. He's doing a good job, but what can you as mayor do to help him do a better job, to maybe get more officers on the street, more tools?
Well, I think, like we've said from the beginning, it takes a different attitude at the top. I have the tremendous amount of respect for Chief Drake, as I think most families across Davidson County do, when they see not only the ability he has to lead our police, but also the empathy that he has for families and for victims of crime. So my relationship with him to date, I think appropriately, has been one of a citizen of our city. I first met him when he came to my neighborhood in Edge Hill as the new chief to sign a community agreement with our neighborhood around community policing issues. And I really admire him, and I hope to have the opportunity to work together.
On the issue of gun violence, you have said that Nashville can't continue with a policy of catch and release. Pointed criticism of DA Glenn Funk for not prosecuting some gun cases. Do you feel he is not being aggressive enough with gun violence cases?
I do. I think that, and I respect the position that the mandatory minimum of 180 days makes it a hard case to prosecute, but we can see other DAs across the state that do have a higher rate of prosecution around this. So if something's wrong with the law, if something is not working with the law, but we know that we've got to prosecute the theft of guns, let's go and say, how do we fix the law so that we can actually see it be carried out?
Do you agree with his assertion that he and all DAs have to make the choice which crimes to prosecute and which crimes not to prosecute, and they can't prosecute all crimes?
Sure, they can't, but when the word gets out there's nothing wrong with stealing a gun, you're not going to be prosecuted for it, then I think that crime continues to be committed and can be continued to be committed at a higher rate.
Alice Rolli, mayoral candidate. Our conversation continues when This Week continues. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Week in our conversation with Nashville mayoral candidate Alice Rolli. Give me some clarification on an issue that happened this week. Earlier this week, you said you fired campaign advisor Woodrow Johnston when you learned he discussed recruiting the hate group white supremacist Proud Boys to a Nevada election protest in 2020. He claims that's not the case. He claims he resigned to you, gave you a letter saying that there were campaign differences, and that the company that he works for told you in advance in your first meeting that there was this issue with Proud Boys, this controversy. What happened?
Yeah, well, I hired a firm called McShane, and I vetted the person who was initially assigned to me very carefully. And actually, I called the candidate that he gave me to call, an African-American woman, massively outspent, elected here to a nonpartisan race, and she gave me a great reference for him. As the campaign went on, I got leveled up to different people in the firm. When on Monday I found out about these issues, I let the entire firm go.
One more national issue, and we'll get back to local politics. In 2016, Tennesseans voted overwhelmingly for President Trump to be president. You attended his inauguration. A lot of Tennesseans attended the inauguration. A lot has changed since then. The insurrection, indictments, impeachments. Have you made a decision yet? He's leading in the polls to be the nominee. Have you made a decision yet? Are you going to support President Trump this year?
Every time we've nationalized the city's business and the mayor has gotten involved in signing things or not signing things, had been good for people in Nashville. So who I vote for president is really, I don't think, an issue in the mayor's race. I went also to native son Albert Gore's Democratic National Convention in 2000 when I was living in California with Governor Gaston Caperton. So look, if the former Economic Development Commissioner says we're going to go and observe the peaceful transfer of power, I was there, and so were a lot of school kids and probably about 100 senators.
You have said education is your top priority. Everything revolves around education. You support the governor's new funding formula. The money travels with the student. You support charter schools. How can you do that? And those are good choices. How do you also balance the 80,000 metro schools, children in a majority school system, when actual money, they're getting less actual money under this new formula? How do you keep them viable and growing with all this other aspect of education in Tennessee?
Yeah, well, I think we're funding our schools at about 50% higher than we were about 6 years ago overall. But your question...
In Nashville, though, Nashville citizens are paying more taxes.
That's right, yeah. But your question is, how do we make sure we make the seats that parents want so that we don't lose our student population, right? Right now, we've got more children that are school age in Davidson County than any other time, and yet our school population, which includes charter schools, has declined. So our job has got to be, how do we build the seats that parents want? We've got some schools in the county with a waiting list. How do we clear those waiting lists with building the schools that parents want to send so that they stay in our public schools?
You have said, and you know the folks up on Capitol Hill, you can help heal the divide between the state and the Republican supermajority and Nashville. How do you do that in regards to some in Nashville, a Democratic city, see this as government overreach, that they're trying to take over government control? You would be the mayor. How do you negotiate and deal with these folks and still remain autonomous as a mayor, a metro council autonomous? If they want to reduce it, maybe that's the city of Nashville's decision. I understand the concern from the state, but it does seem like they're coming in and attacking and targeting Nashville alone.
Yeah, and I think we've got to step back and say, what do the people of Nashville need, and how do I aggressively advocate for that? And so I think of all of those things, to your point, to aggressively advocate for a reset to 2002 of our state local option of the sales tax. That's more dollars here. Aggressively advocate for a quarter of all the infrastructure on the East Bank to be paid for by the state because they came in of a quarter of the dollars for the Titan Stadium. Is be aggressive, act in the interests of the people of Nashville, and do it without partisan labels. We can either build a wall, which we've been doing, or we can build a bridge.
Alice Rolli, candidate for mayor, appreciate your time and your insight. Time flies by.
It does.
Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment. Welcome back. What would you like to tell Nashville voters finally?
Make sure that you get out and vote. We had very low turnout the first time. It is up to you to turn our city in a new direction.
And that will do it for another edition this week. Thank you very much. I want to thank my guest, Alice Rolli. Hope to see you back here next weekend for another edition of This Week. Between now and then, have a great week.